Thank you, sir. So let's move to the next question. This is very interesting because recently, because of your publications and your suggestions to Taiwan and the U.S. relations, made China government very angry. And we have talked a lot about China's, communist China's propaganda, cognitive war, and info war, and control the opposition. And recently, the first attack against you from China provide examples using these tactics. So I'm really want to know what do you think about CCP's response against you. But before that, I also would like to introduce the most important paper you published, which make China so angry, because that is also, we know that China doesn't like you. They previously has attacked you on media, but this time it's become very intensive. And that is right after you published one article about the challenges in Taiwan, what Taiwan government should do, and your suggestion for Taiwan government and U.S. government, what they could consider to solve this problem. As I summarized, the challenge one is the U.S. questions whether Taiwan has been actively preparing for self-defense, suggesting that this may indicate a lack of will among the Taiwanese people to fight. And since 2024, members of the KMT, Kuomintang, and the Taiwan People's Party, TPP, in the legislative have used a series of obstructionist tactics to weaken Taiwan's national defense, including freezing budget, relocating defense funds for other uses, and canceling or reducing budgets for new weapon systems. And Taiwan must strengthen its defense capabilities in order to deter potential Chinese invasion. And the challenge two you mentioned is that the CCP has its own timeline for invading Taiwan. Taiwan and the U.S. needs to challenge their response strategies to force the CCP to reassess and delay its plans for an invasion of Taiwan. Would you like to briefly introduce your solutions? You mentioned 6 solutions, and why do you think China is so angry about that? How do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I think that all these solutions I propose are contrary to the direction that China wants Taiwan to be. As you mentioned in the beginning of the first show, that China has this law called the Anti-Succession Law in 2005, which says that China will do everything it can to have a peaceful, quote-unquote, reunification of Taiwan, but if peaceful reunification is not possible or becomes evident that it cannot be done, they reserve the right to use non-peaceful means, which is really code word for war. They will conduct war against Taiwan, and I mean war because the definition of war is fighting between two countries. They deny that Taiwan is a country, so they have to use the word non-peaceful means as a code word for war. They have to do some mental gymnastics about this. So the 6 proposed ideas are all about making Taiwan closer to the United States. So the real I would say the painful thought that Taiwan would become a new state of the United States, the 51st state, was probably the most severe suggestion I had. Remember, I listed these as possibilities. I was not going to self-censor myself from proposing different ideas about Taiwan. I am not the first person to suggest that Taiwan become part of the United States. The first suggestion was made in 1850 by 2 U.S. diplomats who were on the island of Formosa, which is Taiwan today, who suggested it. And then over the years, there have been many suggestions of people in Taiwan about making Taiwan a state. For example, after the war in 1945, there were people here in Taiwan who mentioned the idea that the U.S. should take over Taiwan. And in fact, the United States did control Taiwan because after 1945, the Japanese government defaulted to the United States. And so there's an argument that says that actually Taiwan is still part of the United States. It just hasn't been politically expedient for the United States to declare that. And that went through the court, and the Supreme Court of the United States says it's a political decision. So that made them pretty angry. And I think also for having people to have the thought in their head that there was even a chance that Taiwan could be part of the United States really upset them, because they don't want people thinking those kinds of thoughts. And as you know, the communist China doesn't want people to think. They want to do thought control. They want to make sure that people don't think about things that are forbidden. And that is a big forbidden, because it means that Taiwan would never become part of China. And that would completely be contrary to their whole mindset. I mean, the notion that Taiwan is part of China is even in the PRC's constitution. And they constantly are beating on this topic in every engagement they have with every country in the world. And so this article really was let's say, I opened up a wound that they thought everyone forgot about. In addition to the suggestion of making Taiwan a state, there are other possibilities, such as making Taiwan a territory of the United States and not making it a state, such as the situation with Guam, or there's the Compact of Free Association. There's 3 countries in the Pacific called Palau. I forget the other 2, but there are 3 countries that are separate countries, but their security and defense are the responsibility of the United States. So that is clearly a possibility for Taiwan, that they would maintain their independence as a country, but the security and defense aspect would be the responsibility of the United States to work with the Taiwanese government to ensure that Taiwan is safe. And then I also mentioned that that Taiwan and the United States could revert back to their mutual defense treaty, which was canceled by President Carter at the end of 1979, the Mutual Defense Treaty. So I mentioned that that's a possibility. And then if none of the other ones work out, then I suggested that Congress give the president the authority to deploy troops to Taiwan and around Taiwan and to other countries in the Western Pacific to protect our vital interests. We already have forces in Japan and South Korea, and then we have rotating forces in places like Australia, the Philippines, etc. So we have several options, and I wanted to lay out what those options are as a discussion point to make to both the Taiwanese government and the U.S. government. Now, obviously, some of these are not necessarily realistic right now. Maybe they would be in the future. But nevertheless, it's important to know what the possibilities are. And so when I wrote the article, the senior United Front Work Department advisor on Taiwan from Xiamen, he went through all my points and ridiculed them, and then he ridiculed me. He made fun of me, which I thought was interesting, because I didn't think that they would be so petty, so cheap about their attack on me that they would have to make it personal. So I thought it was very immature, actually, almost like a baby crying that they didn't get what they wanted, and I'm happy that they're upset. Because when China doesn't get its way, it's a good day.
Thank you, sir. Actually, you also mentioned that the possibility to use Taiwan's foreign currency reserves to and also maybe even use the tariff U.S. get from Taiwan to cover the defense cost and also to help Taiwan enhance their capacity against the CCP. And all the things, as you mentioned, pound to pound is kind of rejected by CCP's senior United Front work of official Zheng Jian. He's also a researcher in Xiamen University and he focuses on Taiwan issues. But will you I don't know whether you can understand the hidden meaning in his paper. Actually, it's more than something very empty and shouting like babies, crazy. It's very cultural revolution style, like back to Chairman Mao Zedong's period when they try to portray someone as a traitor. So this person, from his look to his family to his accent to whatever things personal and achievement he had will be all rejected. And this Zheng Jian's paper really has that kind of politic significance. And when I read it, actually I can see, for example, there are something really ridiculous I want to share with people. For example, when you talk about the foreign currency reserves, you said Taiwan has the fourth largest reserves in the world. And if they could have some idea to use this amount of money to cover their defense cost, if not, China will gain Taiwan and this will belong to China. So for Zheng Jian, he clearly has no idea about this possibility before. But he, as a leading researcher and official in this field in CCP, he is very scared when he sees your suggestion. That's why in his article, he said, how could you talk about that? And he tried to convince the readers that this is never possible. However, he finally said, when you say if Taiwan doesn't use this amount of money and later in the future China will decide how to use it, he said that is the common sense. So basically, he has to agree your proposal, and just he's very scared of that.
Well, yes, I mean, I think it's look. It's not like a bank account where you can withdraw the money anytime. I understand that. But there are some things that are possible. For example, every month or every couple of months, the Taiwanese government puts money into this account. So instead of putting money into this account, they don't put money into the account, and they put the money into defense. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that most of the foreign reserves in cash, the cash foreign reserves, are U.S. dollars, and so they're in U.S. banks. So that means that it's quite easy to move the money from U.S. banks to U.S. defense companies to buy weapons systems. And I think that also scares him a little bit too, because China, communist China also has lots of its foreign reserves in the United States. And so in that sense, the United States has a lot of control economically over China as well. And that's something that the Chinese government doesn't really like, and that's why they want to make the renminbi the standard money in the world, and hopefully it'll never happen. But yeah, you're right. And thank you for explaining all these details, because I'm not smart on the subtleties of the Chinese language and how someone in the United Front would craft an article that would contradict what I proposed, and so there are ways to get the money out. Like I said, you don't put the money in; instead, you put the money in defense. So that's one way to affect it. Another way to affect it, as you mentioned, the tariffs. The tariffs are money that the President of the United States could use as he sees fit. It goes into the Treasury. It's extra money, and so there's a potential there for it being used to help Taiwan. Again, I am thinking outside the box. I'm thinking of ideas that maybe other people hadn't thought about. And and everyone who says you can't do this, you can't do that, I always say to them, okay, what can you do? Don't tell me what I can't do. Tell me what can be done. So that's what he did. His whole article was no, 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 you can't do this. And he would never offer a way that Taiwan could become part of the United States or be protected by additional weapons, because that would be completely contrary to what position he holds, which is an advisor on Taiwan for the United Front. And the United Front, of course, is planning the occupation of Taiwan by Chinese military and the People's Armed Police. So they're not interested in any of the things I have to mention. But I will say something very interesting. One of my colleagues, during another interview I had, mentioned that, in a sense, it was actually very stupid of him to write about my article, because it allowed people in China to understand that there are other ideas about what Taiwan can do, and one of them being statehood of the United States. And these are all forbidden thoughts. And so by repeating what I said inside China, he's actually amplifying the thought that they're trying to make people not think about. So I thought that was the most interesting aspect of my article, was that he actually repeated my arguments. And he obviously he made fun of them, or he tried to make them look like they were not possible. But the very fact that he had repeated them means that people in China now know that there are other options that Taiwan can do to protect itself against aggression from China.
Yes, actually, that is the significance of this paper. It doesn't matter for this CCP official Zheng Jian whether Chinese people will listen to your suggestions or not, because he believes that CCP government can always suppress people's thinking and even disappear people's thinking. So what matters for him is actually the common thinking among CCP members is, when you write this article, for Zheng Jian as the leading official, CCP official and research on Taiwan issue, it become his problem, because when he monitoring Taiwan and infiltrate Taiwan, how could he ignore you and let your opinions out without awareness for CCP? So for him, this is a political, biggest political fault for him. So for him, he needs to express his loyalty to Xi Jinping, to CCP, that, see, I'm not on this colonel's side, and I hate him, I try to dismiss him, I use all the way to discredit him. You see, I'm loyal to my party, and this is a statement, I will launch the attacks among all my followers, my campaign to attack this colonel. We will solve this problem. So for him, his top idea is he needs to maintain his position on Taiwan issue, and he needs to solve this problem in case he gets punished for that. So this is very interesting. As you said, one hand, they like Chinese people have the thinking, and on the other hand, they also need to end this thinking. And also, this is, as what we discussed before, for CCP, is called killing the person and killing the soul. So that is the traditional Chinese idioms. Basically, it means compared to just kill a person's body, they prefer to kill the person's spirit, because once you lose your confidence, you lose your thinking, you lose your spirit, this person will be like zombie, right? And in CCP's tactics, they had make the evolvement. They use the firewall, using the censorship, using all these kind of high pressure measurements to control people's thinking. And once they find the dissident, or for example, they find people in Hong Kong against the CCP's control, against the state security law, then they will manage to destroy these people's confidence by of winning this battle, and also manage to using information war and all the other unrestricted warfare tactics to make the person isolated, and then become gradually silent, and then finally this person may be driven mad, or maybe locked somewhere no one knows, or maybe just killed. Anyway, this person is already disappeared both from physical and also his spirit. So that's the evilness part of China. And of course, your papers, not only one, but the series of your papers have made people thinking and provide them more options. And that's why CCP launched a series of attacks against you. And we believe there are more using their unrestricted warfare, not only online, but also even in your real life, threatening you because they need to stop you. They need to prevent your idea become people's idea and even get accepted, become available. That is a huge, huge threat for CCP stability. And
well, doesn't it also mean, just one thing, doesn't it also mean that they failed in making people in Taiwan convinced that the only solution is reunification? So he failed in his mission. The professor failed in his mission to suppress any thought other than reunification, and that's why I think, like you said, he's worried about his job because he failed in stopping someone like me from thinking about other options.
Of course, sir. It's like Dr. Tedros in WHO failed to, and Dr. Fauci failed to convince people the COVID-19 virus from the nature. It's the same. People will think and there will be more solution and people will come to the other side because they know now we have hopes and we have the possibility and the feasibility to solve this problem. And so the time is limited, but I really enjoy your discussion and thank you for coming to the Voice of Dr. Yan, sir. I hope we can continue our conversations in the future episode.